You're listening to the weekly Parsha podcast with Ari Goldwag, recorded with Hashem's never-ending assistance in Ramat Beit Shemesh, Israel, 5778, 2018. This week's Parsha is Parshas Yisro, and I think it's accurate to say that this week's Parsha, the events in our Parsha, which is the revelation at Mount Sinai, over 1 million Jews together experienced an unmatched and unparalleled revelation of God. In that moment, in those moments when God said, Anechi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God. This moment, this description of our Torah, of our Parsha, is perhaps the climax of all that's gone on from the beginning of Genesis, from the creation of the world, all the way through the stories of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the tribes coming down to Egypt, the exodus from Egypt, Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses. I think it's safe to say that this is the pinnacle, the climax of the entire Torah. It's the high point. It's the point where God reveals himself to mankind, to the Jewish people, and in so doing, forges his relationship with the Jewish people in a most awesome display. Now, that being the case, we need to look at this moment. We need to look at what's going on here and understand what is the central theme, perhaps, of the revelation at Mount Sinai. What was God coming to do? What was the idea here? And so to do that, I'd like to share with you an awesome, the words of Chazal, an awesome, beautiful medrash. The words of Chazal, our sages, are so rich and so deep, and there's so many lessons to learn from it. There's so many depths that are hidden inside of each medrash. And I'd like to share with you the last piece on our Parsha, which is in Perek Chav Tes, section Tes, the 29th chapter, on section number 9. The Medrash explains that when God said, I am Hashem your God, so this fulfilled that which we find in a verse. The verse says in Amos, chapter 3, verse 8, Aryeh shag mi lo yira. When a lion roars, who shall not fear? The concept of the lion, we're seeing the Medrash is saying that God is compared to a lion. It's an analogy. God is compared to a lion roaring. A lion roaring. When a lion roars, who shall not fear? There's a lion roars means he's hungry, he's angry, or I don't know exactly what. But somehow, a lion roars and everyone is afraid. I'd like to point out that the word Aryeh, of course I'm very interested in the concept of the lion because my name is Ari, and it's the same word. Aryeh, the word Aryeh, there's two very interesting things to see immediately, and that is that the letters of the word Aryeh, when you rearrange them, so it spells the same word Yira, which means fear. So the very letters of the lion denote the concept of the lion, which is fear. Also interestingly, the word Aryeh has the same gematria as the word Gevura, which means either strength or withholding of kindness. We have Chesed and we have Gevura. We have kindness, and we have, which is on the right side, and we have Gevura, which is the withholding of kindness. So the aspect of the Aryeh, the aspect of the lion, denotes Gevura. It denotes strength, or it denotes withholding of kindness. Okay, so we need to understand what is the concept in this context of Hashem being analogous to a roaring lion. What is the idea? So let's study this together. Zeu dichsev, the Medrash says, the first aspect here, the first thing that we see is the following. Mi lo yira acha melech hagoyim. The verse says in Jeremiah chapter 10 verse 7 that Jeremiah said, Yirmiyahu Hanavi said, who shall not fear you? And he refers to God as the King of the nations. Ki lecha ya'asa, because to you it is appropriate. Okay, so Yirmiyahu refers to Hashem as the King of the nations, which is unusual. Usually we refer to God as the King over Israel. Amar hanavim le'Yirmiyahu. The prophet said to Jeremiah, Mara Isa Loimer Melech Hagoyim. Why did you refer to Hashem as the King of the nations? Kol hanavim karin say Melech Yisrael. All of the prophets refer to God as the King of Israel. V'ata karin say Melech Hagoyim. So why is Jeremiah referring to God as the King of the nations? Amar lahen shomati mimenu navi lagoyim nesaticha. Jeremiah referred to God as the King of the nations because Hashem had said to him, God had said to him, you are a prophet to the nations. That's who I have placed you to be. And this was actually a reference not to the nations of the world, but specifically to the Jewish people. And as the Eitz Yosef explains, it was a negative connotation. It was referring to the Jewish people that they were behaving like the nations of the world in a negative way. They were behaving in a way that wasn't in consonance with the Torah, and thus they were referred to as goyim, as Gentiles. Ani amarti melech hagoyim, lomer im albonav al bnei beiso lechas al acher muchas. So the Yirmiyahu, in response to this reference, to the fact that Hashem referred to the Jewish people as a nation who is like that he is a prophet to the nations, the Jewish people are behaving like the nations, Hashem, Jeremiah refers to Hashem as the king of the nations, meaning there's an aspect here of neiros, of yira, of fear, of judgment. So the idea here is that Hashem comes like a lion. He comes as a king of the nations, so to speak. He comes in judgment upon the Jewish people. He comes to give them boundaries, I would say. Very, like a parent. A loving parent. Hashem is our loving parent. He loves us. But at the same time, it's very interesting, and we're going to see very soon, we're going to see that there's a dual aspect that's going on here. There's an aspect of the fact that Hashem approaches us with yira, with fear. We're supposed to fear God. We're supposed to have a relationship of respect, I would even say, but also fear. Like a child has to have proper respect for the parents. A child has to understand that there are clear boundaries. Hashem is coming and saying, these are the boundaries within which our relationship is going to be forged. These are the rules. This is the mitzvahs, the commandments that you need to keep. So in that respect, God is interacting with us with yira, as a lion roaring and saying, you want a relationship with me? This is what you have to do. Right? So God comes, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God. Right? There's a certain yira, there's a certain respect that we need, a certain fear that we need to have, not to cross the boundaries, not to enter into a place which is a defiance of God's will, because we're entering into a relationship with God. So, and that's why the Medrash talks about the fact that the Jews sometimes behave in a negative way. We break the boundaries. We behave like the nations of the world who are not commanded. We behave like those who do not have as many boundaries. We have a relationship with Hashem which is unique and special, and what comes with that unique and special relationship is a deeper sense of respect for those boundaries. Mashal, it's very interesting. Mashal l'danestus shemidei kisei zehuvim. It's an analogy to a person who is a moneylender. A moneylender who lends out money. He has a purse full of golden coins. And he came out to the marketplace and he's calling out, whoever wants to can come and borrow money. Everyone who heard it ran away. Because the people, why did they run away from this moneylender? Because they said, when it's going to come time to pay, who will be able to pay? If we borrow money, how will we be able to pay it back? So there's a sense of responsibility. There's a sense of, I am now coming into a relationship with Hashem. God is saying, I am Hashem, your God. And everyone, the response is fear. Almost, I want to run away. Why? Because whenever we enter into a relationship comes with challenges. And it comes with boundaries. And it comes with responsibilities. And it comes with commitments. Okay? So too, as it were, God came down to Mount Sinai, and he wanted to give the Aseret HaDibros, the 10 Commandments. Why did Hashem want to create these boundaries? It's like a child who has no boundaries and is running around wild. Okay? If you don't give him clear boundaries, what's going to happen is he's going to be destroyed. He's going to end up as a thief. He's going to end up in jail. Who knows what's going to happen to him because he has no boundaries. So Hashem saw the world was on the edge. That if there would be no boundaries given into the world, if there would be no rules, so then everything would be destroyed. The world, people destroy themselves. Evil can spread when it's not curbed. So Hashem said, here's what we need to do. These are the boundaries. Shenemer Eretz Rasha Af Shamayim Notfu. Very interesting. The verse refers to the fact that the land shook. There was noise. There were earthquakes. It was a grand sight. It was an amazing Ma'amad Har Sinai. It was an amazing experience for the Jewish people, but it was a fearsome experience. It was a challenging experience because God was laying down the law, literally. The Jewish people were shaking. The world was shaking. The mountain, Mount Sinai, was shaking. It was, the verse refers to the fact that it was shaking. Why was this? Why did Hashem do this? Because Hashem was giving us these commandments for life. And the Navi tells us, the prophet says, as we said in the beginning, when a lion roars, who shall not fear? So there's a roaring, there's a shaking that occurs because of the boundaries being set, the commitment being made, a relationship being forged. So there's fear and there's shaking. Okay? Now, so we see that this is what happened at that time. This is what happened at the Exodus, which was the Geula of Klal Yisrael, the forging of the nation of the Jewish people, the Exodus, the redemption of the Jewish people. And it was a time which Chazal referred to as they went back to the state of Adam HaRishon Kodem HaChet. They went back to the state of the first man before the sin. There was a return. This is Moshiach. The Messiah had arrived. His name was Moshe Rabbeinu. His name was Moses. And he brought out the Jewish people. And what happens when Mashiach comes, when the Messiah arrives, is that there's a shaking because a relationship is being formed. Okay? So that's what happened at that time. And the Medrash continues and tells us that's what's going to happen in the future as well. When Hashem gives life to the world, Hashem is like we said before, the world was shaking. It was shaking. It was on the edge of destruction. Hashem brought laws in. Hashem created boundaries so that the world would not be destroyed. If that's how it was then, you want to understand what's going to happen in the future time when the Messiah arrives, which is actually the present time. As our Chazal, as our great sages today have told us, and over the last 100 years, they've told us that Chavetz Chaim spoke about the First World War and the Second World War. He was able to see prophetically that there was about to be a Second World War. That these were the wars of Gog and Magog presaging the Messianic era. We are entering, or we have already entered, the beginning stages of the Messianic era, according to our great sages. So if we look at that in light of the fact that there's a shaking up that happens, there's a massive shaking up that occurs, there's a judgment on the world. Certainly it's going to happen. There's going to be a shaking when Hashem comes to judge the world. There's a judgment that occurred 70 years ago during World War II, 100 years ago during World War I. There was a judgment. And that judgment, that shaking, that gevura, that aryeh shag, that lion roaring, that's the experience when it comes to Hashem creating a new relationship with the world, bringing the world to a new place spiritually, bringing the world to a new relationship with Him, which is what we're beginning to see in the world. So Hashem comes to collect, so to speak. He's the Noisha, He's the one who lent the money, created the relationship and said, this is what it has to be, this is what you have to do, this is what our relationship looks like. Have you kept that relationship? Has that relationship been respected? That's the question that Hashem asks as we enter into the phases of Geula, of redemption. So, Alachas Kama V'chama is going to be certainly, if that's how it was by the Geula, when it came to the redemption from the Exodus, there was a judgment that went on. Certainly it's going to be that way in the future time before the Messiah. Shenemar, as the verse says in Nachum, in chapter 1, verse 6, Lifnei Zama mi yamud, who can stand up in front of God's anger? Mi mechalkel es yom boyai, who can be sustained in the day that God comes? Kishu rotzei ein bri yachol lama b'choichoi. When God is looking to be appeased, no one can stand up to it. Kishu kam b'charen apoi, mi yamud lefonov. When God gets up in His anger, who can stand before Him? Hevi mili yarcha melech hagoyim. This is the concept of the verse that we quoted earlier, which says, "Who shall not fear you, the King of the nations?" It's a reference to the fact that God comes in judgment, that God comes in creating and forging a new relationship with the world, with the Jewish people in the world. So there's a judgment that goes on. Okay, so that's the first concept. The first concept is this intense judgment, this intense sense of shaking that the world has to experience as the Messiah arrives, as the Geula occurs, as they receive the Torah, as they forge a relationship with God. Okay, I'm going to skip a section here because I want to get to another point. I'll just give you like a small sum up of part of this section because it's interesting. The Medrash refers to the fact that we find that Yerushalayim, Jerusalem, is referred to as a lion. We find that King David, Moshiach, the Messiah, is referred to as a lion. David is representative. Could be that he himself will return and be the Moshiach. It's machlekes in Chazal. We have different opinions in our sages. Or Moshiach himself, the Messiah, could be that he's a person who's going to be living in the generation of the Messiah. But in any event, the Mashiach, David HaMelech, King David, is referred to as an Ari, as a lion. And so is the Jewish people referred to as a lion. And interestingly, Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylonia, is also referred to as a lion. And he comes to destroy the temple and take away the malchus, take away the kingship, the rulership. The Jewish people are meant to be the rulers of the world, to guide the world in the true path of God. That is our yud, that is our ultimate purpose in the world, and we will fulfill that function properly when the Messiah arrives. But that function was stolen by Nebuchadnezzar. He destroyed the temple, which is referred to as the Aryeh, as the lion. He took away the malchus, the kingship, from the Jewish people, and he took it to himself. He is referred to as a lion. So whoever is in charge, so to speak, whoever rules the world, so to speak, is called a lion. Very interesting. Okay, so that's the Jewish people as represented by that. And the Medrash says that when the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, so Hashem roared. Hashem is the true lion. Hashem is the true leader, the true source of everything in the world. And he's the source of spirituality, he's the source of all goodness and unity. So he, as it were, he was roaring from his place, as the Medrash says. I don't want to get so far into that idea as I do want to get into the last concept, which is brought in the Medrash. It says like this. Another explanation of this verse in our context of the fact that the lion roars. God says to the Jewish people, do you acquiesce, do you agree to receive the 10 Commandments? They said yes. Shenemar, as the verse says in Psalms, chapter 92, verse 4, Alei Asar V'alei Navel. So the simple understanding of the verse is that it's talking about a 10-stringed harp, or 10-stringed instrument, that was used, or will be used in the future time, when the Messiah arrives. Discussion, there's lots of discussion about it. But Alei Asar, the Medrash understands it to mean something different in this context. Alei Asar means Alai lekabel aseres hadibros. Asor is a 10-stringed harp, but we're going to use it here to mean the 10 strings, so to speak, of the aseres hadibros, of the 10 Commandments. Alei means on, but it can also be read as alai, which means upon me. I accept upon myself, the Jewish people said. We accept upon ourselves to fulfill the 10 Commandments. Alai asor. Alai aser lekabel aseres hadibros. And as the Eitz Yosef explains, va'alei novel. This is the duality which I wanted to come to speak about, to delve into, try to understand the beauty of this Medrash, the depth of this Medrash, the richness of the Medrash. That when the Jewish people receive this Aseres HaDibros, which are represented as an Aryeh Shah, God is roaring, right? There's tremendous fear, tremendous respect, tremendous laying down of boundaries. But when they receive it, says that, as the Eitz Yosef explains it, there's a gilu bira'ada. There's a rejoicing in trembling, the verse says in Psalms. The gilu bira'ada. Somehow it's possible to rejoice, to be joyous as one is fearful, as one is respectful. In our generation, in the Western world, we're not comfortable with the word yira in regards to God. We don't like the word fear. We don't want to be afraid of God. We want to have a relationship with God. We want God to love us. But that is a failing of the Western world, that we can't handle boundaries, that we can't handle. It's very hard for us to have respect. And that's why there's so many problems in relationships. There's so many problems of divorce, etc., relationships between parents and children, relationships between man and wife, etc. All of that stuff stems from a problem in boundaries. As parents, we have hard times laying down boundaries for our children. As in our relationship with our friends or with our relationship with our spouses, we have hard times respecting each other's boundaries and even laying down what our boundaries are. The beauty here, it's so beautiful, because the Torah is telling us this is the foundation. The foundation of true reality is rejoicing in boundaries, understanding the joy in respecting each other's boundaries. Klal Yisrael receives the Torah, alei asar v'alei novel. There's the 10, they receive upon themselves the 10 commandments, and novel is a musical instrument. They are rejoicing in it. They are singing. They are happy as they receive these boundaries. It's a beautiful thing. So beautiful, so deep. Hashem Elokim diber mi lo yinaveh. So now the next point in the Medrash is also very remarkable. God speaks. The verse in Amos says, chapter 3, verse 8. God speaks. It's the next words in the pasuk of when the lion roars, who shall not fear? When God speaks, who shall not prophesy? Amar Yavo b'shem Rabbi Yochanan. Yavo said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Kishnatan HaKadosh Baruch Hu Torah. Amazing thing, beautiful thing, deep concept. When Hashem gave the Torah, tzipor letzovach, no bird made a sound. Oif leparach, no bird flew. Shor loigo, an ox didn't make a noise. Oifanim loyafu, none of the animals, none of the angels were flying. Srafim le'amru kadosh kadosh. The angels, which ordinarily say holy, holy, holy in reference to God, they didn't say a word. Hayam le'nizdaza. The waves were all silent. They didn't move. The oceans didn't move. Habrias le'dibru. Nobody spoke. The entire world was absolutely silent. V'yotza hakol. The voice came out. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I am Hashem your God. No movement. No shaking. And as it's pointed out in the Meforshim here, before God spoke, there was incredible noise and shaking. The higher with the mountain was trembling. The people were trembling. Then there was noise. There was thunder. There was lightning. It was an awesome spectacle. And then there was silence, absolute silence. And in the silence, God spoke, and He said, "Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God." And the Medrash goes on. I'm not going to read it inside, but the Medrash goes on to say that there wasn't even ordinarily when you speak, there can be an echo. There was no echo. There was just one voice. You wouldn't mistake it that there's more than one Hashem. There's only one God. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. Very quiet, very simple, undeniable. There's no two ways about it. It's very clear. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God. There's only one God. And that's one God. The only one God. And that's Hashem. And that was the revelation. And it was a quiet revelation. And it followed shaking and trembling and noise. And it entered into a place of absolute quiet. And I think that this is not a different statement than the previous statement, which spoke about them receiving Aseret Adibros and rejoicing. Right? The Aseret Adibros, the 10 Commandments, are lots of movement. This is what you've got to do. This is what you got to do. This is what you have to do. And in the rejoicing, when someone is joyful, it's like you've reached that place. When you're happy, you've reached that place. I had an experience yesterday working on a song for my new CD, which will be coming out soon. Maybe I'll talk to you about it next week. And there was a little problem in one of the songs I'm working on with an artist, with a musician out in actually in Seattle. And I said, there's something off here. And he went and he said, is that better? And I said, no, it's not fixed yet. And we went through like 5 revisions until it finally got to the point where it was fixed. And we both laughed. He wrote to me, haha, and I was really laughing when we finally got to that end. Like when you get to that place where you're finished, you have the back and forth, and you get to that place of you stop moving. That's where you're quiet. That's where you laugh. That's where you rejoice. You got to that place. And it was a challenge, and there was so much noise, but you got there, right? That's this joy. There's the trembling, there's the shaking, there's the back and forth, there's the boundaries. And then you get into that place where you're in the boundaries, and you're not moving around, and you're just in the relationship. That's it. That's it. The entire world was silent. I'm also skipping here a bit. There's so much here, but I'm out of time. The entire world was silent so that they would know. Everyone would know. There is nothing besides for Hashem. Just quiet. Not even an echo. God's voice is so loud. Not even an echo. There's only God. Even in the statement, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am Hashem your God. Just quiet. And the Medrash ends off again connecting us to the future time, where Hashem uses the same word, Anochi, I. Anochi, he uses it twice. And he says, I am the one who consoles you. And if we think about consolation, we think about the movement of the Jewish people throughout history. We think about the Aryeh Shag. The Jewish people are this lion. We were the leaders of the world, and then we were thrown away. We lost our leadership to Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylonia, and so many nations have taken leadership since then. But here the Jewish people are returning. In the times of the Messiah, here we are right now, in the land of Israel, reclaiming quietly our leadership role in the world. And it's Anechi hu menachemchem. It's I, God says, that I am the one who is consoling you. A consolation is very similar to this. There's so much movement, and all of a sudden there's just joy. There's just simcha. There's so much movement, and then there's just quiet. I'm the one, Hashem says. And you look at the entire history of the Jewish people, the challenges, the tribulations, the Holocausts, the Inquisitions, so much difficulty, so much lions roaring. And then we get to this final point, and it's just quiet. We're waiting for that quiet. We haven't gotten there yet. But the quiet is the joy. It's the nechama. It's the consolation. I want to bless you, and I ask you to please bless me back, that we should be able to have this respect, understand the beauty of the boundaries of the relationship with Hashem, with God, what it really looks like. We should understand that these laws, the 613 commandments, are not here to strangle us, but they're here to give us a true relationship with God, so that we have true fear, true respect, and true joy that follows that fear and respect. And we should be able to experience this simcha, this song. We should be able to experience this nechama, this consolation. Thank you so much for listening. Have a wonderful Shabbos. This podcast was made possible through the gracious donations of listeners like you. For more podcasts like this, please visit www.arigoldwag.com or search on iTunes Ari Goldwag.